Hi, I'm Roland Smart, and we're back at DrupalCon 2019. This time I'm with Dave Albert from CROmetrics. Welcome, Dave.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me. All right, so you were here for our Partner Day event yesterday, and you shared some awesome content about the work that you do in the optimization and personalization world through your firm, CROmetrics. And I should mention, I am a happy customer and glad about that we've produced some great results together, and I'm looking forward to doing more together. So I want to tap into some of what you shared with the group yesterday. But first, tell me a little bit about CROmetrics and your background, and then we'll talk about how to get into personalization.
Yeah, sounds great. So CROmetrics, we're a fully distributed team all across the United States. Yep. And about 50 people. We've been around for nearly 11 years now. Our core competency is experimentation. And so we've run over 15,000 experiments over the years, and as you can imagine, we've got a lot of awesome collective learnings from that across numerous different verticals. And so as we've been expanding our business, we're looking more in the analytics space because that informs what we do in experimentation. And so, yeah, just working with about 60, 70 clients, of course, with Pantheon, and we've been really excited about working with you and your success as well.
Cool. Yeah, so part of the reason we wanted you here is when you're doing experiments, you have to make changes to your site. And you're working in an environment where you run lots and lots of tests.
Sure.
And I think that we're very interested in helping web teams embrace agility, and part of what that means in the testing world, at least to me, is how can we break tests down into the smallest bits and pieces that we can? Mm-hmm. If you're going to do that, and you want to make lots of changes to your website, making changes really, you have to drive down the cost of making changes.
Sure.
That's the role that Pantheon has to play. CROmetrics comes in with a lot of experience that maybe you can help us understand sort of what you bring to the table when it comes to helping marketers understand personalization versus optimization.
Sure, yeah, that's a great question. I think really what it comes down to is a continuous cycle of testing, right? Okay. So always making sure that the more you test, the more you learn. So we really subscribe to the idea of high velocity testing. Yeah. And so we often encourage our clients to really embrace experimentation before they embrace personalization. Because once you start experimenting at scale, you begin to learn more and more about your audiences, and then you can move into personalization. And the way that you do that most effectively is by having those consumer insights, being able to extrapolate that and create smart segments of your audience, and then look at how you can leverage that on the highest impact areas of your website.
So I think what I'm hearing is you're talking about doing experiments that actually help you understand what the market segments are that you want to personalize against.
For sure.
Okay, got it. So as you engage with customers, you talked about starting with testing, and I assume that includes optimization. How do they get started? What would your recommendation be like? What are the very first ways of getting a program going and getting into the motion, the regular motion or regular cadence of doing this kind of work?
Yeah, it really breaks down to identifying the highest opportunities on your website. And it's where are the friction points for your audience? Obviously, in any optimization program, you want to lead users to an action based on their intent, right? So they have a motivation to come to your website, you have a motivation to get them to take certain actions. You need to identify what those friction points are along the way. So we do that in a couple of different ways. One, we look at the analytics and sort of break down where we see opportunities, and then we're also looking at things like qualitative research and the site itself to really understand that customer journey and identify those areas of opportunity. So within our onboarding period, we usually try to run some playbook, what we call playbook tests, which are things that, I mentioned we've run 15,000 plus tests. We've got a lot of learning, so we often see things in certain verticals that almost always work. So we say, this is an immediate opportunity, let's run that test. In parallel, we're doing that sort of deep dive discovery to uncover what are the biggest opportunities on the site.
I feel like we may have benefited from some of that playbook already.
For sure.
That's great.
Yes.
So let's talk about technology for a second. I'm sure that your firm works with a bunch of different technologies. Before we jumped and hit record here, we were talking about there are some optimization technologies that are embedded with CMS, and there are other cases where they're decoupled,
Right.
and there's an optimization platform and there's a CMS platform. I think I have a strong view as a marketer that I try and build my marketing stack out of what I think of as like a microservice architecture or a service-oriented architecture, because that gives me more flexibility. I can swap out a component more easily without compromising the larger architecture. What's your take on this? What do you see that's really working from your perspective?
Yeah, I think your approach is the right one, because then you can really use best-in-class tools to build your experimentation program. And what we find is it's definitely not a one-size-fits-all, right? Each business has unique business objectives, they have unique challenges, they have attributes of their target audiences that differ, and so different tools offer different advantages to leverage those opportunities the most. And so I think looking at it objectively from the most ideal marketing tech stack allows you to do that, rather than trying to buy a one-size-fit-all and then sort of push through the things that you want to do that it might not be entirely built for or capable of.
Yes. So for us, we use Optimizely together as the platform of choice, and I know, I believe that you were recognized by Optimizely last year as one of their top partners, top consultancies. Is that right?
We were named the Delivery Partner of the Year, which was awesome.
That's awesome. So is that, just to put it in perspective, is that the majority of your business where you tend to be working with Optimizely, or what are the other tools that you tend to work with?
For sure, yeah. We, most of our clients are on Optimizely.
Okay.
We do believe they have a world-class experimentation and personalization platform. But we have some other clients on other platforms, such as VWO, Google Optimize, Adobe Test and Target. We consider ourselves platform agnostic, but we do have a deep relationship with Optimizely, and we do feel they are one of the best platforms out there.
Yeah, awesome.
For sure.
That's why we chose it, and that's why we've invested at Pantheon in making it really easy to work to put those two things together. They fit nicely together, and we try and deliver on that microservice promise by making it easy to integrate them. Okay, so you're a marketer, you've gotten going, you've identified some segments now. Let's talk about personalization. You're at that phase of your journey. How do you get started with personalization?
Yeah, great question. So I think it is, once you have those audience segments, looking for areas where you might have a lot of traffic to a particular area that matches those smart segments, but may have a lower conversion rate, right? So that becomes your ripe opportunity to say, look, we have a very valuable audience here. We've identified this valuable audience. We know they're coming to our site. We have the traffic to sustain a personalization effort, but the conversion rate is relatively low. Let's work on some optimization that raises that baseline conversion rate.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on something that I think is, I think it's obvious to us, but I think it is worth just saying out loud, is that in order to substantiate a test and get to statistical significance, you do need to have a baseline level of traffic.
For sure, yeah. I mean, there are really two components that will hamstring you in terms of your ability to run tests, right? It's traffic and your conversion rate. So the more traffic you have and the higher conversion rate, that affects your ability to reach statistical significance.
So marketers need to factor that into when are they actually ready to run a test, in terms of when have they got enough traffic. And I assume that when you break out segments, you're dividing up your traffic.
Yes, absolutely.
So that potentially could be an issue for some segments that might be lower volume for you.
Yeah, and one of the ways that we work around that is through proper planning. So when we're doing roadmap planning, we'll create what we call swim lanes, which map to the KPIs of the program, right? So you have the key performance indicators that ultimately ladder up to the North Star goals and the business objectives. And within those KPIs, we have the swim lanes that define those audience segments based on different attributes. And then we can run test estimations around the duration of how long a test might run. So when we have all that data and we're looking at it holistically, we have that bird's eye view with our roadmap planning, then we can say, okay, here's what's feasible in terms of what we run next, what we might be iterating on, and we can map that out. And sometimes those planning cycles are really short and very, fall into the agile spectrum, and sometimes they're a little bit longer. It really just depends on the objectives of the company and the cadence of their testing program.
Awesome. Well, I feel like you've given me a mini education here, and your session yesterday was great, so thanks for coming on with me and chatting about it.
Thank you.